You know, they call him the Bush family pastor. Of course, he's a lot more than that, but very connected, very close to the entire Bush family. I'm talking about the rector of St. Martin's Episcopal Church, a stirring speaker in his own right, the Reverend Russell Levenson. I had the chance to meet the Reverend at Gene Cernan's funeral a couple of years back, the last man to walk on a moon, and to hear him is to just be spellbound and just sitting back and appreciating the simple beauty of a life, and in this case, a remarkable life, as we remember President Bush. The Reverend joins me right now. Reverend, thank you for taking the time.
Good morning, Neil. How are you? I'm sorry to talk under these circumstances, but good to hear your voice again.
Same here, my friend. I mean, talk about a lot of pressure. I know you have to follow a number of eulogists there, and you've done that so nobly and well at so many key times in our history. Once again, after Barbara Bush, a little more than 10 months ago, 8 months ago now, facing that again with this. I mean, what images come up in your head? Of course, the former president was obviously a frequent member of the church. Tell us a little.
Yeah, the president and Mrs. Bush both were not frequent. They were here every week. As long as health or travels didn't get in the way, they were very active members of the church and behind every initiative the church pressed forward on. They were very good friends to the people at St. Martin's. Many people don't know, but going way back, the president, who served in leadership at the church, was known to serve coffee on Sunday mornings. He was an usher when he had the chance, and then as time went on and he had a security detail with him, that did not stop he or Mrs. Bush from being very warm and welcoming to the people in the pews. As we discussed back in April, Barbara was very active in our ministries up until the very end. She was one of our saintly stitchers who used to participate in making kneelers for the church. She was very, very proud of that role. But his leadership was always evident, and we had this predates me because it was during his tenure as president, but we had a Bring a Friend to Church Sunday one Sunday, and his friend was Margaret Thatcher. That's who he brought to church with him.
It's hard to top that, right? Reverend,
that's right.
We talk about, he had his own little wilderness years. Some friends have described them as wilderness months because he didn't stay melancholy long after his 1992 defeat to Bill Clinton. But he was trying to right his life here and try to, what do I do now with the rest of that life? And your church, and I know this predates you taking over as rector, but what was your sense of his faith and what kept him going?
Sure. Well, I've been here almost 12 years, so we've been together a lot in worship. We've prayed together a lot, and certainly had our long discussions about faith. And a man of deep faith, and a simple faith, and I don't mean that in simple in the way many people might interpret that. It just came very easily to him. One of the things he liked to say was worship was essential to his life, and participation in the church was part of that. But it was a very real faith that he had in our Lord, and he and Barbara were Christians, very active and committed Christians to Jesus Christ, but at the same time had a large circle, as we all know, of people who were friends across the aisle, but friends across faith traditions of lots of people from, you've had wonderful quotes on this morning, including the Dalai Lama, but he was friends here in Houston with the Jewish community, the Muslim community, and we hosted several interfaith services here at St. Martin's particularly around issues of unity and peace, and they always participated in those services. So, very faithful man in every way.
I always think of the pressure on someone like you when you have to deliver a eulogy and you have to hit it out of the park. And there's so much of a burden on the eulogist here, especially after others pay their respects. And then you're playing cleanup, Reverend. And I think of that and the powerful clientele at your church that extended to the late, great Gene Cernan and, of course, Barbara Bush, so many others that people forget. That's a who's who crowd. And yet you find a way, as maybe evidence in their lives, that they were just good human beings at their core. And I noticed that tended to be the way you went about remembering them.
I think that's a good point. At a moment like this, when we offered Barbara's service back in April, that was a service that the worldwide audience saw. But that's interestingly enough, that was a period in which 10 days we had actually 6 funerals, and hers
Wow.
was one of 6. And aside from the crowd, all the other services were very similar in that we read from Scripture and sang hymns and offered the prayers from the Episcopal Church. And that is exactly what Mrs. Bush wanted, and it is exactly what President Bush wanted. So my role is really to not focus on anything other than the service itself, and my role as a pastor and a priest to lift up their faith and really remember and give thanks for this remarkable life and their faith in God and the role that certainly President Bush had in inspiring us all to great unity, humility, and service, which was, of course, his watchword all the time: service, service, service.
Reverend Levenson, thank you very, very much. Very good speaking to you again. I'm sorry under these circumstances, my friend, but be well.
Thank you so much. Take care, and God bless you, Neil.
All right, you as well.